of research. So it involves trust, collegiality, working with others in a way that you do good work ethically, and that things like publication comes to mind, things like research misconduct comes to mind. So being able to do work or scholarly work, doing it well and doing it ethically.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's go to Dr. McBride.
There's a lot of pressure on researchers to publish. In many universities across the world, there is a phrase, publish or perish. I told a joke. It's not really a joke in my presentation. I've had many colleagues who've lost their jobs because they didn't publish. I've had colleagues who've lost their jobs because they didn't bring in the big research dollars. So the pressure and temptation on scholars and researchers to take shortcuts, to fudge the data, to lie are enormous. But the consequences are so large. A destroyed career, you can destroy your graduate students' careers. If your grad students or students who are part of your dishonesty, their degrees may be affected. They may lose their degrees. They may never get a job because of you. So we talk about in Christianity how important it is to resist temptation. The temptations are great. If I could just find, I know my project is good. I know I can find what I want to find. But if I make up 3 more cases, then I have a good data. Never do that. Always report with integrity, because the Bible says your sins will be found out. Integrity is a core of who we are as Christians. Integrity is a core of who we are as scholars. And we can have a reputation that far exceeds us because we affect our students. So if we act with integrity, our students will act with integrity. Their students will act with integrity. The Bible says unto 3 and 4 generations, integrity goes unto 3 and 4 generations. So what you can start can go for generations to come.
Thank you so much. What I just got from the first 2 speakers, one is the duty that we have when we talk about responsible conduct in research. We're talking about the duty that we have for the people who are involved in research, but also the second component, that is integrity in what we are doing. And this is a very serious concept, actually, when we're doing research. A lot of us have done research. And you find there's a concept called publication bias. Yeah. That has been in research for many years. This was even stronger in the 70s, 60s, 50s, where people would not be allowed to publish something unless it had statistical significance. And so people will have it's like 0.01, you're almost there with statistics. Yes, please go ahead.
I need 3 more cases.
I just need 3 more cases and I'll get the statistical significance. And so there is a lot of literature that has been written on that to show that a lot of these things actually happened. People publish things, they had to alter something because we're almost there. So, you know what, I'll just change this. And we have no way to actually look into that. Before I go to Prof. Ganu, let me go back to you. How do we make sure, and this is my bias from qualitative research, how do we make sure those numbers we are receiving from SPSS are actually accurate? The researcher has not tampered with that. Please help me with that.
Well, one of the things ethically you do is you keep your raw questionnaires. So if anyone questions your data, they can go look at the raw data. And federally funded projects, you have to keep the raw questionnaires for, I think it's 5 years. Mordecai, you may remember. For 5 years. So if anyone says, I'm not sure of the integrity of your data, then they can be allowed to look at your raw questionnaires. And they can see that you entered your data accurately. So I think because of the fraud from past decades, we are required to keep our raw questionnaires. So if anyone questions our data, they can go, or the IRB questions our data, they can go in and look at our raw questionnaires and make sure we entered. Now, one of the things that I do is I have my data entered twice. And so if there's no discrepancy, I figure, okay, it's probably okay. If there's discrepancy, I look at the questionnaire. So some people, can make a mistake. So we also increasingly have, ways of entering it automatically. But look, keep your raw questionnaires. That way, it's an integrity check on you. Because if the raw questionnaires are there, someone can check on them it makes it harder to cheat because, you know, someone can check you up.
Thank you so much. Yes,
In
please.
addition to that, just on two levels. One, the research design would help you to know whether if somebody doesn't get the sample size they require, if they talk about increasing the statistical power, they would show the formula. So you can actually use the data you have and increase the statistical significance using a formula. Now, we also know that fabrication of data and falsification of data has consequences. And how we discover this is through some of the softwares that we now have. You can tell when somebody has actually fabricated data. You can also tell that somebody has falsified data. And if you go, I would direct you to the Office of Research Integrity online, just say Office of Research Integrity, look at the case summaries. What you will find is research misconduct. People who have actually been indicted for committing falsification of data or fabrication of data. Of course, in addition to that, plagiarism. So don't falsify data. Don't sit back and make data for yourself. Let data speak for itself, and through that, validity is determined.
Thank you.
Your career is not hung on one project. You know, that maybe it didn't work out this time, but you've learned something. And your next project, maybe you'll find what you hypothesize. So it's really the risking temptation. You know, and Mordecai's right. There is this book, you know, we talk about the investigative judgment in Adventism. It exists at the federal government. They have this book, and this book lists all those who committed scientific fraud, their names, the case, the situation, and what happened to them. If they're banned from life, if they're banned for 10 years, or what's happened to them. So it is truly something that the consequences are so huge, you never want to go down that path, never.
Okay, before I go to Prof. Ganu, bottom line of what we're learning here is that we need to make sure that the research is done with integrity, whether somebody is seeing that or not. We need to make sure that is done with integrity. And this is a biblical principle. It is not simply because it's in the textbook. It is really who we are as Christians, and most of us on this platform are Christian. This is what is expected from us from the Bible, that we need to do whatever we do with integrity. So let's go to Prof. Ganu. When we say responsible conduct in research, what comes to your mind, sir?
Before I answer that question, anything you do in life has ramifications. Even if, like my colleagues are saying, even if it is not detected, if you want to keep your questionnaire, you are doing something and you belong to a scientific community. For the scientific community to thrive, it will depend on you and I, who are researchers. And we owe responsibility to each other. I think one of you presented a case and somebody falsified, the statistics and people quoted from him. To be able to correct that, it may take forever. Imagine if your research work has been published and it was a falsified work and you publish it 20 years. Could you imagine how many people might have cited your work? So for me, when we talk about responsible conduct of research, one thing comes to mind. We would like to foster and maintain good science. We want to foster and maintain good science. So if you are going to falsify and fabricate the mathematics, the data, always think that am I fostering and maintaining good science? So again, for me, I owe it to you as a researcher, and to you as a researcher, and to you as a researcher, in order to make the scientific community work. We owe each other responsibilities, and let that responsibility always come first. And we owe responsibility to God as well.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Okay, here is another question, and any one of you can jump in anytime. A lot of the presentations that have been made, they have been focused on science, like health sciences. But we have a lot of us who come from social sciences. What is the responsibility that social research scientists have towards community, towards the people who participate in the study? Because when it comes to health science, we know that you're going to come up with the medicine that is going to help us. So that's kind of very, very, very well known there. But I'm doing a research. I want to understand how right now we have a program here in leadership. And one of the things that bothers us a lot is women leadership in a society that is a male-dominant society. How do we make sure that our sisters have the same privileges to access leadership positions? Here we're talking about positions specifically. And we have people participating in this study. What responsibility do we have towards the people who participate in that study?
When you talk about research, and I know that research is a systematic inquiry. Mm-hmm. Even in the social science, in leadership, if we conduct research and we come up with the fact, we went through a systematic way of coming up with a fact. So whether health or social science, that fact we came up with must be trusted, must be rigid, must be trusted. And so you can't go any other way and come up with a fact and say that for leadership, let's say servant leadership work, and research says that. You must be responsible. You must follow research, conduct, research, systematic research way of conducting research to be able to come up with that fact that this type of leadership work. So there is no shortcut. Whatever systematic way we go to come up with the end product must be what is proven to be the best practice.
Okay. So the best practice is part of the answer.
Yes.
I agree with you that whatever type of research we do, if we're responsible, we need to do it right, following exactly the rigor of the research design that we have devised. Definitely, that's one aspect of the responsibility. But hey, you have 500 people who have participated in your study. Is it enough for them to complete the survey and you get the survey and say, thank you so much, bye-bye? Is that enough to say we have been responsible as researchers? What do they get from me? What do they get from this? Yes.
And that's a very good, you're right. In social science, we don't inject cancered liver cells into anybody. So we think, oh, we're good. But there's really, from my perspective, ethically, and I teach my students, when you conduct a research project, you have an obligation to your funding agency to report your project to them. I think you also have a responsibility to your scientific peers to publish in journals that are read and are cited. But you have a primary and major responsibility to your subjects. You must report back to your subjects. That can be through the press, it can be through a church paper, it can be through some communication that the group you studied uses. And so you communicate to them. So I see it as a trinity, to your funding agency, to your scholarly peers, and to the people that you studied. I've done community events where I've reported to them. Whenever I do a study for the Adventist Church, I try and publish it, but I also publish it in the Adventist Review or the Union Herald. Now, I think you have a further implication. One of my findings are that a major reason that women cannot have leadership, perhaps in the Adventist Church, is there are structural barriers. No matter how often we train them or how well we train them, because in order to have many positions in the church, you have to be ordained. There'll never be a conference president. There'll never be a union president, a division president, or a general conference president. Do we have an obligation to point out, if you would like women in leadership, maybe you should address some things? Now, one of the advantages of being semi-retired and 75, I'm not looking for any promotions. What are they going to do to me? But that may be something a social scientist should also say. You have created a structural barrier that will never allow women to have leadership positions.
Thank you so much. Before you speak, I just wanted to pick on something he has said there. It is not enough for us to say, I have completed my study, I have presented at the conference, and I'm done. And I'm speaking specifically to students writing theses and dissertations. I don't know how much percentage we get published, because at least when it's published, we know that it's going to go beyond the school. But many times we have universities that don't even have the online databases for the thesis and dissertations that are completed. That means whatever is completed, you spend 1 whole year or 2 years writing this dissertation, and the only people who will ever know about it are the people who attended your defense. And that is a lot of resources, human resource, that is put to waste. And so we need to understand that we have the responsibility to take the voice, now borrowing from qualitative research, take the voice of our participants, our respondents, to the world so that people can know about their story. Because the more people know about their story, the more likely they are, there is a chance for them to get solution to the problems that they are facing. All right, let's go back to...
Before Dr. Ongo
all right.
And that is very true, Dr. Safari. Well, we have just completed the first phase of Adventist health study in the continent. And the health ministry's director of GC said, no, the work has to be distributed. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we are publishing 20,000 magazines. Wow. And also designing a web page, just to make people, get to know what has been done. And so we are not doing this work and just keep it, to ourselves and say that, hey, we have done this work. Who knows about it? And who is going to read about it? Who is going to get the knowledge? We need to publish.
Research is a form of witnessing. Come hear my talk tomorrow. Research is a form of witnessing.
And research is not a secret society. All right, let's go. Dr. Mordecai.
Before I come to this one, allow me to go back to the previous question. And just to piggyback on what Dr. Ganu said, it was about some of the errors we commit in research. When you falsify data in clinical research, someone dies because other people are going to rely on your data. Yeah. Now, we have what is called clinicaltrials.gov, where people over 120 countries around the world share their findings. And some physicians rely on that for cases that we do not have clinical interventions currently for. So if you falsify data, somebody is going to die because of your research.
Correct.
Think about it. Now, coming to your qualitative research, how do the subjects benefit? Well, one thing, some studies that are intervention studies are not necessarily clinical. Some could be teaching about ethics. For example, I think last week I was watching something covered by the BBC about getting a driver's license in Nairobi. That you can actually get a driver's license without knowing how to drive. You can check Google the BBC. And it was sad because people can also take vehicles that are not roadworthy to the road. And in all these cases, people are dying. So if somebody designed a study to teach about ethics, people are going to benefit. The subjects will benefit from the outcome. They can change their behavior. So that's another benefit that is not necessarily direct, but is implied. And so we have that responsibility in behavioral social sciences. We can conduct intervention studies that have immediate results. Community action research deals with things that affect benefits, our responsibility as researchers. Yes. So let us be innovative and do research that can benefit people.
But use the best practice.
But use the best
Use
practice.
the best practices. All right, thank you so much. Here is another aspect of the same question. And this has to deal with culture. Today, with globalization, we do international research or research in a multicultural setups. How do we show our responsibility to the local culture? Even, I'm talking even of being here at the university, just 15 kilometers away from here, I'm already in a different culture. What should I do as a researcher to make sure that I'm responsible to the culture? Because it is our obligation as researchers not to change the culture of people, at least if it is not unethical, cultural practice. I think if we look at it from a UNESCO perspective, we as outsiders, we don't even have the right to alter that cultural practice. What responsibility do we have? What should we do as researchers coming from outside the group, outside the community? And many times it happens to us. And we go into the community where we are considered outsiders to make sure that we do not disturb the culture, the local culture.
We have to respect local cultures as researchers. We have to be sensitive to people's cultures. We don't go to impose our regulations upon them. We have to give the local individuals, the people. I have seen cases where somebody would go to the Amazon and take pictures of the indigenous people without even asking for their consent. And you go ahead and use those pictures in a publication without their consent. You are disrespecting the people. The others are not going to get the true story. So be sensitive to people's culture. Talk to the community leaders when you're conducting research. Let them give you permission. Know what you're supposed to do and represent them in an ethical way.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Prof. Ganu.
That is an interesting question you ask. And for those of us who are in health, and especially public health, we can tell you that culture is crucial when it comes to research conduct. Let me just narrate a story of a true story to substantiate what I'm saying. I won't mention the town, but it is a country we know very well. There is this man from the West. He came to the local culture, and without being sensitive to their culture, without talking to them, he realized that these people need a hospital. And so he built a beautiful hospital, and then the mistake came when he said the female ward is up and the male ward is down. This man was actually killed by the people. Yeah, he was killed. It's a true story. And no one used the hospital. You might ask, what happened? Then people were afraid to come to that community again, but one other West guy was very bold and came and engaged the community leaders. It's a simple cultural thing. The simple cultural thing was that in this community, in this culture, women do not stay above men.
All right, let's go to Dr. McBride. That is a powerful illustration there.
Yeah.
Just something that we can look at it as something trivial, and yet it costs a life to the person who had a very good motive to build actually the hospital. Well, yes.
In the years I chaired NIH grant review committees, it was always, if you're doing international study, you had to have what we call a culture broker. Someone from the community who had expertise and who is indigenous to the culture and a leader in that culture to be on your advisory board, to be included in your project. You also needed a local advisory board of leaders from that community. Often it would be someone from the faith community who might be a leader. So no federal grant would get approved if you didn't have that culture broker, the culture leader, and advisory boards from that culture. And the international work I was involved in the past decades was reduction of age-risk behavior. And that's very cultural context in terms of what in that culture can you draw on that would strengthen, reduce risk behaviors. And so without a knowledge of the culture, you can't hope to change behavior. You can't hope to have any impact. So any researcher doing international research anywhere must have a local cultural representative that is on the advisory board that's included in the project. Okay, I look white to you guys, but if I go to a part of the United States that's called the rural South, I would be as much of an outsider as many of you here. I don't have the right accent. I don't speak the local language. I would get in serious trouble. So you may think you're part of a local culture, and you're not. So always be sensitive. Always include people who can advise you, help you, who share your objective to do good things, but can tell you where you put the women's ward, can tell you where you put the men's ward, can tell you even how you ask questions, the language to use. I once had a project with the Native American tribe in Florida. And, we have a questionnaire to fill out. Well, why aren't you filling out this questionnaire? Well, the only way I can ask them is to pick cucumbers with them. When I herd cattle with them, I can ask them these questions. So if you don't have a local culture advisor and board, you will always get wrong data. And I didn't know you would die, but that's a real motivation to have a local culture expert.
Thank you so much. We are going to get some questions. We still have only a few minutes. I'm going to get to you. We have 5 more minutes, so just hold there. I'm going to get back to you. Here's the last question, and then we'll get the questions from the audience. And for our IT person, please get the questions from Zoom. If you have any, send them through WhatsApp. Find a way to send them through WhatsApp so that we can address them as well, because I have no access to Zoom at this point. Here is the last question. Talking about responsible conduct in research. Most of what we're talking about is related to responsibility to the community, responsibility to the participant, to the respondents. But what is our responsibility to ourselves? I'm going to do a research study in Ukraine right now. What should I think about as a researcher about myself? That is a concept that many times is left behind. Can somebody speak to that? Responsibility in research conduct, but with your own protection. Can somebody speak to that?
Well, again, NIH grant review committees, if we felt there's a danger to the investigator, we would not approve it. So, for example, how are you protecting yourself? What are the protocols you're going to use to stay out of significant danger? If you don't have very serious protocols signed off by local officials, local government officials, you're not going to get approval to do that. So you must be very cautious for your own safety, not just your safety, but for your staff, for your assistants. So we'd be very skeptical right now about the Ukraine. And if you had very strong protocols from Zelensky, that someone was going to be guarding you, providing you safety and guarantees of your safety, perhaps. But in the Vietnam War era, some research I've seen not approved, that you really have to, not just yourself, everyone that works for you. Sometimes if you pay local people to work with you and the enemy wins, they're dead. So you have to be very aware of the danger you're in, you're putting people in, and the protocols for protecting them. But we'd be very cautious right now.
Thank you so much. And I want to just draw our attention to this, what Dr. McBride has just said. For us who are members of IRB or ERB committees, we should not ignore that aspect. I went through this personally when I was for my dissertation. I was conducting a study in a refugee camp and internally displaced camp. It took me like 3-4 months to come up with a plan that will be acceptable to ERB committee for me to be allowed to go. I had to show that I'm going to do my interviews outside the camp. Those who accept, I'm going to work with the camp. They will bring them outside the observation. I'll get somebody who will videotape the camp. I will tell them exactly what to do and so on. And so this is an area that we should not ignore. Right. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah,
yes.
I just want to say that in terms of your safety, usually the PI will think about his safety. and then will not care about the research assistants.
You've got to.
And we have to take them. They are also human beings.
Yes.
I can sit here conducting, I have a fund, an approved huge fund, and I don't want to go to Ukraine, but I will send my research assistants to go. It is also wrong.
Thank you so much. Okay, at this time, we are going to take the questions from the audience. We're right on time. I see the first hand here, second and third, and after that, we'll take the ones that are online. So the first one here, second one there, and the third one, Prof. Awar.
Maybe
Let's
IT
do that.
guys can help us with the mic.
Yeah, let's get the mic because having been online myself yesterday, when the person doesn't use the microphone, it is hard to hear online. So thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the discussion and presentation so far. I have something that is really concerning me over this ethical review, and it is this. For example, in Kenya here, we have various professional bodies. If you are a doctor or a pharmacist, you have to register with the Drugs and Poisons Board. If you're a nurse, you have to register with the Nursing Council. If you are a medical lab personnel, you have to register with the KMLTTB. So, where do we draw the line between the ethical review committees and the professional bodies? I'm asking this because several people have been barred from doing research in particular areas just because he did not belong or does not belong to a particular body. So the committee says now, okay, now you are not a medical laboratory specialist. You are not a nurse, so you cannot go this way. Is that really the way to go? These people have created no-go zones for particular people. There are particular ethical research committees in Kenya here. You take your proposal there, and they paint it red. They even change the original protocol that you are to use. At some point, they even withhold it. They tell you now you are not a professional in this area, so you are not going to do this research. So where can we put the line? Where do we draw the line between the ethical committees and these professional bodies? Are they the one to license you, or it is the ethical bodies to license you? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask those who are in health professions. I think they're, Prof. Ganu, you might be much better situated on this question. Please go ahead.
When it comes to health, it's a very sensitive area and very crucial because real life is at stake. When research is done to say that tobacco causes lung cancer, it is not done 1, 2, 3. It has to be done from various, scientists. So you need the approval of the ethical review board, and you also need approval of the professional body because they are protecting that body. It is very key. Human life is at stake. So ethical review board may approve you, but you also have to seek their approval and for them to know what you are going to do before you can do your research. So they are not out of place. They are trying to guard.
Thank you so much. And I think, if the microphone can move to the next person so that we save time. And I think that if this is the reason why all members of any ethics review committee or board have to go through training. Because some people may do this just to give you a hard time. But if they are painting your paper red because they want this research to be really, really good, then it's something we should not be against. But if it is something that they are doing just to give you a hard time, then that's also an ethical practice within an ethics review. And that should be discouraged. Let's go to the next person. And please, when we ask a question, let's try to No, that was the next person. I said 1, 2, 3, and we'll go online. If we still have time, then we'll take somebody else. Let's go to that person. We need to know that ethical boards can also do some unethical practices in the review. And I think some of us have been in situations like these where you just feel that it's unfair. I just went through a proposal, a grant proposal evaluation recently, and when the reviews came, one of them, even the people who are granting the grant, said this one is clear that they did not have experience with international research. So that's why they gave this comment. So they may be also biased. That's why we need training. Yes, sir. Let's keep the questions to 30 seconds, 45 seconds, so that we can get all the questions in. Thank you.
I didn't have a question, but I have some supplementary comments in regards to the questions you answered. One relating to culture. Let me start with that. Yes, that question is so important. And for those who are in health profession, there's something called assessment. When you are going into a culture you don't know, or even if you go to a culture you know, it is always important to do thorough assessment. You have to understand, you have to engage the people who can do that in that community in a way that you integrate them and let them talk for themselves. And that way you will get to know that community, because how you will conduct your research will depend on what they have given you as their priority. These are called social assessment. They are called epidemiological assessment. It's called educational and environmental assessment. So when you do this, you are going into a research which is informed, and you have the background, and now you can do whatever you do based on the information emanating from them, including a representation from the community. Another thing I wanted to say is, we Kenyans are known to have been the originator of M-Pesa. I live in the US, but in the US, we were far ahead of banking money in our phones, ahead of that community. And they know that. But you find that they have overtaken us. Why? They are doing cutting-edge research. They take over from you. And then now they go further into researching on the areas of needs. So it is just not enough to publish, but it is enough to go into research which will give immediate results that give impact and outcome in the lives of people.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your input. And we go to the next person. And when you were speaking, before you speak, Prof. Award, something that came to my mind is, what do we think about the questionnaires that we develop in our offices, at our home? And we're going to conduct research in Ghana, hundreds of miles away from here. How is that culturally responsive? Before we land in Ghana to conduct that study, we have already our research questionnaires, whether it's interviews, we have already everything, because it has to be approved by the ethics committee before we even travel to Ghana. How culturally sensitive is that? Something for us to think about. Prof. Award.
Thank you very much, Professor Wambaleka. I just wanted to contribute to what you said about the dissertations that stay in our libraries or stay in our homes and never get to be read by other people, even if we have made great contributions in our dissertations. We have a participant here from Gothenburg University. I don't know if he's here this afternoon. Yes. In that university, about 25 years, 30 years ago, they had left this traditional dissertation writing. And they only had the introduction and conclusion, and in between were 4 manuscripts that must be published. And therefore, that kind of format gives the opportunity to the people who are writing this dissertation, opportunity to publish and get their manuscripts read by the world. That is maybe something that can be recommended, the direction to go. At Virginia Tech, they had a model of that, but you had to complete the proposal and then develop 2 to 3 manuscripts from your dissertation. And those must be published. They publish them on their online portal. So many people can reach those. Here in Kenya, the Commission for University Education requires that you have to publish 2 articles from your dissertation before you graduate. The only difference is you complete the traditional dissertation, then you develop a manuscript from it to publish. I think we could have a way to influence some of these practices so that we gain more from the dissertations. And I think this needs to come from universities like this one of ours. So those are some of the things that I think some practices that we can copy from other universities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Awor. We have, I have 3 questions here, quick questions. I'm going to ask each one of you to address only one. But I just wanted to go back to one important thing that Prof. Awor has just talked about, and that is to deal with publications. I know of one university in Asia where dissertation, and I was discussing this with some of my students just the other night. This university, the dissertation is a compilation of 3 publications. You publish 3 articles in high-impact journals and on the same topic. And when the day comes for you to defend, you put the 3 together, and that becomes your dissertation. To me, that is much more important, because by the day you defend your dissertation, you already publish, your work is already out there. Something that we really need to discuss in different universities and see if we can start implementing that, because there's just so much knowledge that is just rotting in the library, and nobody's reading that, because we tell students, don't even quote the dissertations, don't quote the thesis unless you're writing a thesis or dissertation. But if it's a paper for class, I say, no, don't go there, because we don't know who was the supervisors. But if it is already published, it's a different story. Here are quick questions. I'm going to address the first one. Must I wait till I get a research grant before I engage in research? The answer is no. You need to, in fact, many of us, I don't know about others, but it took me quite a long time after I had completed even my dissertation before I applied for grant, because I needed to feel comfortable. Many grants will require that you have a lot of experience, a lot of publications. And many times, you do not actually have that yet. And so you don't wait for the grant before you publish. I'm going to ask the next one to Dr. Mordecai. What are the special ethical considerations in conducting research with children?
So when you're conducting research with children, first of all, we have categories of studies. They're going to be involved in survey studies. Are they going to be involved in interview studies? Are they going to be involved in studies involving observation in a public place? So when you engage children in research, you understand they are children, and so therefore there has to be parental consent. There also has to be a guardian consent if there is no parent. You also have to secure assent from the children. All those deal with the first principle, ethical principle of respect for persons. You also have to be aware that children have additional protection, regulatory protection. And so therefore, engaging them in research means that your study would have to be reviewed and approved or disapproved at a convened ethical committee meeting.
Thank you very much. I think that is very well said. We're going to the next question. Who is the child? What is the definition of a child? What age, most likely? I think that's what she means.
So In the US, the age is determined from state to another. But in our written procedures, we say that anybody below 18 is a minor. And so there, the 3 areas I described would be applicable, right?
I think that it varies then from country to country, because I've heard of countries where you are an adult at 17, others at 16 you can get married. That means you're already an adult, we're accepted as an adult. So you just need to know the definition according to the country. I think you wanted to add something.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I was serving as an external examiner for one of your students in Andrews, who is here in Kenya, and he was working with his participants were 15 years and below, and the requirement that Andrews brought. Now, we even have to get a psychologist ready in case the children, one of them is traumatized.
Yes.
But that guy has to change. And as soon as we said 18 years and above, all those were wiped out.
Thank you so much.
So the research design is also very important when you're involving children in a study. The kind of study that you're doing can raise a lot of red flags. So you have to, again, that brings into question the competence to conduct that study as a researcher. And so if you are not very familiar with that area of study, then you have to surround yourself with people who are knowledgeable in that area. So, yes.
Thank you so much. Let's go to the last question. Unless the chairman gives us an extension of 10 minutes, this will be our last question, because it's exactly 3, and it will go to Dr. McBride. When is deception acceptable in research?
And that's in a lot of psychological research, they use what's called deception. Correct me if I'm wrong, an IRB process in that would be to describe the general purpose of the study. We're trying to examine the best way to reduce group conflict. All right, and then if the IRB approves the deception, that there's an experimental group where something is done, a control group where nothing is done, and if that's considered not harmful, the benefits outweigh the risks because we're trying to reduce ethnic tensions. But after the experiment, you must debrief. In other words, you must explain to all of the subjects what happened, why it was done, and the benefit that occurred. And if there's any emotional complications, you have to have counselors available. So deception is allowed if the benefit from the research far exceeds the harm, and you debrief the subjects, every subject, about what happened, why it happened, what the purpose was, and deal with any emotional consequences. Is that a reasonable?
Yes, it is a reasonable explanation. And one thing that you find, I can only speak from social science, you'll find that some experts will tell you that you can collect actually data without obtaining the informed consent for the same reason. But immediately after that, here's the danger. Immediately after that, you need to tell them that they were part of the research, because you knew that if you tell them ahead of time that it's research, they are going to lie to you. Yeah. But the danger with that is that right after you collect your data, you tell them that it was research, they have the right to tell you, no, I don't want to participate. So you'll have wasted your time and their time. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
That's correct. Look, and I've done these kind of things. You have to have a general, look, we'd like to participate in a study that helps us understand how human beings relate to others and other ethnic groups. Okay, and then you want to do something that, look, I'm a social psychologist. My minor is in social psych in my doctoral program. And so one of the ways we try and reduce group conflict is to assign people to work on a similar task with each other. Okay, so different ethnic groups working on the same task. Russians and Ukrainians, I don't know, working on the same task. And then another group, you just have them talk to each other, not do anything. And then afterwards, you ask some questions about how they feel about members of the other group. Okay, so, the experiment was deceptive. I didn't tell them that you're going to do a task that probably will reduce ethnic conflict. But afterwards, I must explain to them. So I generally think you can have a consent protocol that gives sufficient information about what you're doing without violating your research hypothesis that'll be acceptable to the IRB.
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
we will continue
Oh, yeah.
panel discussion on Saturday afternoon.
All right. That's very good. So this has come to the end. I know we still have other questions, even online. There were still a few other questions we haven't gotten to. I will ask our IT to put them together and send them to Professor Ganu. And we'll try to see if there's a time somewhere where we can address those questions. But thank you so much, panelists, for this very, very lively discussion we have had this afternoon. And we look forward to learning more from you tomorrow and Friday and even on Saturday. Back to you, Chairman of the conference.
Thank you very much. Let's give a hand to our moderator first. Our moderator, very good. He has handled this very well. And to our panelists, including me. Thank you. Some of our friends are leaving us today, and then we would like to spend some time appreciating them, giving them certificate. But before we do that, I would like to give 5 minutes to Dr. Janet Odiambo, who would like to advertise something, little for us. So, Dr. Janet, could you come up? IT people, I have been asked to ask you to project what Dr. Janet Odiambo gave you.
Good afternoon again. Please, IT, can you project the conference poster? I would like to also invite you, you don't have to take a flight back and then come back. And then tomorrow we are starting another conference, right? But I'm also inviting you to the conference that you are seeing projected here. We'll be having our 6th International Research Conference on Social Sciences from August 18 to 20th. We don't mind if you come back here. It is okay. But also if you want to do it online, it's fine. But I'm also encouraging each one of us, because we have learned a lot about research. Why can't we start practicing? So we can bring a paper, we can organize the day is up to May. Actually, we have extended up to May 1 for the abstract. So now that we have the knowledge, the information, let's put it into practice. Please, we are very cheap. We are very, very cheap. We can, for students, it's only $50, and for professionals like you and I, it's just $75. I think that is okay with you. Please find time to write a paper and to practice what you have learned today. So you are all welcome. Also register. Even if you are not bringing a paper, you can attend. Thank you so much.
I thought you would give her a hand. She has said it very well. One thing good is that our researches or our forums is not limited to a physical venue. You don't have to come here. Yesterday, we had more than 100 watching virtually. That was only in Zoom, but many people are also watching in YouTube and Facebook. So, we are reaching many people. So you don't have to, if you cannot come here, you can watch it virtually. The good thing is you submit a paper, submit an abstract. I would like to take this time to invite our DVCA here at the platform. And we are so happy for Laikipia University and Kisi University for sending delegations to come and attend this training. And those from Kisii and Laikipia, could you stand up? Let's see you. Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like our Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Administration to say something. We have your certificate to present to you, and we are so sad that you are leaving us. Because now that we are going to start the paper presentation, we have listened to the theoretical, isn't it? We are now going to the practical. Paper presentation starts tomorrow, and you are leaving us. But we understand why you have to leave us. We appreciate your presence with us.
Professor Gani, you think they cannot change their itineraries? Have they spoken to you that they cannot change their minds? We thank you, the administration of these universities that allowed you to come out and participate in this important training. I know that this is significantly important because we know ourselves. We know where we are, and therefore we know how this is important for us, and we, in your presence, we want to thank those who planned it. The bodies, the 3 organizations, the 3 entities that planned this at this time. Andrews University, and also in collaboration with the AHSRA African chapter. So we thank the Lord for this opportunity that has brought you together to be with us. So I think with that, I hope you are ready to give what you want to present to them.
Thank you. Don't go. You are going to present a certificate. Dr. Dwayne and Dr. Ongo, could you also come? You can walk through, receive the certificate, shake hands with them, and then we are done. I want to take this time to invite Benuel Nyagaka. Benuel Nyagaka. Come and stand here. Yes. Okay. Benuel Nyagaka? Oh, he's not here. Okay, and then we have Bernard Magara Maki. Or maybe I'm not the one pronouncing the names very well. Okay, then we have Priska Kipto Taros. Okay, let's give her a hand as she comes forward. Is she going this way? Okay. Okay. As she comes, Anthony can follow. Anthony Mwaka. Okay. Let's give hands to Anthony Mwaka also. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Shake hands. Wait for the picture. Okay. Thank you. Then Charles Mwe Nguta. Okay, let's give a round of applause to Charles. Thank you, Charles, for coming. Then Grace Chelagat should continue. Grace. Oh, let's give her a round of applause, Grace. Thank you, from Kisii University. Thank you. Then we have Julius. Where is Julius? Julius Ombaba. Oh, Julius is coming. Let's give him a round of applause. Good. Then Justina will follow. Justina. Oh, our beautiful sister. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Then we have Nicholas Kamau. Nicholas Kamau. Oh, Let's give him a round of applause, Nicholas. Thank you, thank you. Is there anybody we have left out from Kitsi? What's your name? Benwell. I mentioned your name. Benwell Nyagaka. Or maybe you went out. Let's clap for him. Let's clap for him. Good. I hope Bernard Magara Maki. Okay. Thank you. Anybody from Kisi University and from Laikipia University who is left out? No. Thank you. Thank you so much, DVCA. Thank you. Okay, now we are ready to go to our museum. Where is Janet Odiambo? Elizabeth Odiambo, come. We are going to follow this beautiful lady. She is the one taking us to the museum and then the library, so that you have something to tell them, to say before we go. Yes, I just want to let them know that we are following you to the museum. Okay, thank you. So right after the museum, we are not coming back again. That is the end of our program for today. Tomorrow we will begin the paper presentation. But we are coming here for devotion and then for the plenary, the plenary speech or address before we divide to the session for the presentation. Thank you very much. So let's move out to the museum.